Aaron is one of the best sales ops guys I know in the space, probably the best sales ops guy I know in the space. So he has a company and an agency that really helps companies implement their CRM, backup process, or backend process, all of that, all of the integration, as well as really help show up rates with their companies. So he's been going over a few things. He's helped me a ton with my show up rates and my sales ops for our company and closers, and we're really good at that. So if I can find somebody who actually provides value in that capacity to me, they're really a great expert in the space. So give it up for Aaron.
All right, guys. So I originally came in wanting to do this presentation purely on show rates. After having some conversations, I changed my deck about 100 times, as I typically do. But I put a few things in here that I've found to work extremely well. One of them I'm going to talk about very, very quickly, and then I am going to spend a majority of my time on the show rate component. But I do want to explain kind of my thesis around systems before I actually get into this. My goal with this presentation is that you guys are saying oui at the end of it. And that is my only goal with this. Or croissant, it's either one. Very, very important. Shout out to the Cold Kefir crew. So, if you're there, eat the. Yep. All right, cool. So, I'm not going to go over really what I do, but specifically, we get to work with a lot of people who do really awesome things, and we get to work on the back end of the CRM. So, we see the sales process, we see the automation, we see the reporting, we see the gaps, we see everything in between, and the way that we look at a system in general is a bunch of different engines that solve for different components of a specific process. So we like to call it letter engine, closer engine, show rate engine, reactivation, onboarding, client journey, etc. And the way that we look at these, and when we look at them at a foundational level, you have a role, right, follows a process that basically is wrapped in platforms. And I hope that makes sense to you guys, right? A lot of people, when they're trying to build out systems, and the reason I'm explaining this is because this can be really important for what I'm about to show you guys, is they try and build what we call velocity mechanisms before they actually have any foundation at all. Okay? Meaning they may not even have the roles yet or a repeatable process, but they try and go buy a bunch of software and wrap a whole bunch of different shit, and they end up with a very malfunctioning overall, basically, system behind the business. And I don't want that to be the case for you guys, so what I do want to point out is after we get the actual foundation engines in, right, the way I look at this, master people process is going to be your multiplier, right? So if you have a broken process, your multiplier is going to be weak, even if you have good people, right? And then your actual platforms, so your HubSpot, your DHL, your Sales Active Campaign, all these things are going to be basically what helps you scale. So it's going to have the accountability. It's going to have, obviously, everything wrapped into, obviously, one platform, which is how we build momentum. So when we're looking at foundational engines, right, these are what we call foundational engines. Everybody has something like this, right? You have your setter process, you have your closer process. Above that, you have your show rate, you have reactivation, you have your basically client journey stuff, right? Now, what I'm going to talk about specifically is a few what we would call velocity mechanisms, okay? Now, the way that we think about velocity mechanisms is if you have a good business and you have a good foundation built across your entire ecosystem, what we do with our clients and what we try and do ourselves is we go in, we look at baseline metrics, and we figure out where we're deviating down and where we're deviating up, okay? And what I mean by that is, for example, I'm about to go into lead to booking percentages, right? If you're looking at your lead to booking percentage against your baseline, right, as an example, right, we're company A, company B, let's say company A right here is your trailing 90-day metrics. So this is, and actually I'm going to go over a better example for you guys because I can do this on my computer and screen share. All right, cool. Share. What's up? Share. Yeah, I'll pull it over here. So the way that we grab our baseline is basically quarter to quarter. So if any of you guys, want this, I'll send it out afterwards. But basically, we take our trailing 90-day metrics, and that creates our average across all of our foundational systems, right? And when we have this, what we look at every single month when we're trying to make decisions on what we're actually going to do with our systems, right? What we're going to focus on, what ops is going to look at, what marketing is going to look at, is we play with these numbers right here, which is basically against our baseline, all right? And fortunately for us, we have hundreds of companies that we get to look at their metrics and see where they're deviated down every single month. Now, what that allows us to do is it allows us to create a lot of really badass velocity mechanisms. And I'm going to show you guys 4. And the way that we come up with this is quite literally looking at the data against baseline and figuring out what we can impact that's going to give us the highest return. So going back to the reason that I put this one at the top is lead to booking percentages. Can anybody just raise their hands? And let's say you're looking at your baseline metrics, you're coming down, right? Meaning you're booking less calls. You may be even generating more leads. What are some things that you guys can do? Sure. You could measure speed to these fellas. Well, that's a good guess. It's a good guess. Exactly. Yeah. So there's plenty of different things that you can do. One of the tests that we ran when we were looking at this was speed to lead. And this is something that I think everybody talks about. If I ask you guys to raise your hands and you talk about speed to lead, who here thinks it's important? By raising hands. Okay, great. How many of you guys have actual tracking around this where you can pull it up and see your speed to lead for every single one of your reps, for your overall business? Raise your hand if you do. 1, 2? Okay, so 2 people out of this whole room. That's problem. That's problem. So what we did is I'm going to show you guys one thing, and I'm going to send this out to you guys. Actually, Matt pulled it up to me when I was talking to him about this the other day. So HubSpot ran a 3-year, this is with MIT as well. And it's you guys read through the white paper. It's actually really, really solid research. But basically, they went over 3 years. They did over 100,000 dials to 15,000 leads that they collected, basically all through online form fills. So opt-ins, applications, etc. Right? And what they found is basically the odds of contacting, so contacting defined as you actually connect with the lead after they opt in, was 10 times basically less likely outside of the first hour. 10 times. The next thing they found, which was basically the qualifying of the lead, which was the first step in the sale process for them, which was booking a call, right, was basically 6 times less likely out of the first hour. Now, if you take that no further, you see here, there we go, and you go down 5 minutes, look at the numbers. 100 times less likely. 100 times. Just out of the 5-minute mark.
We did, I think, $1 million study.
You guys did?
Yeah.
And what you said?
91% of all sets from the first 2.
Yep.
76 from the first hour.
Yep. 100%. So we don't track it, right? All of us just said that for the most part. There's 2 people in here that do, right? So what we did is over the last 30-ish days, we went into HubSpot, and I'm going to give you guys the step-by-step. So it'll pull up. You'll have all of our documentation on it. You guys can implement this. It doesn't matter if you're on GHL, Close. You guys can just follow around basically the videos and go through it. But what we did is every single lead that came into our system, we started tracking speed to lead, and then we bucketed it in ranges. So we had less than 2 hours. Okay, we had over 2 hours, but less than 24, 24 to 48, 48 to 96, and then 96 plus. After that, we took that and we rolled it into basically a dashboard. And in that dashboard, right, we were tracking how many leads we delegated, basically what our percentages overall were, and then the percentage up and down for whatever period we were tracking against the past period. So for example, this quarter, this month, this week, okay? And quite literally all we did was, and this is also your rep performance, so we broke it down by rep as well. How many leads they got delegated, what the percentages for each rep were, and then how many leads in the quarter, this month, this week, never received a first call in any of those ranges. So outside of the first 5 days. And basically, we found the same information. So I went in actually yesterday morning and I grabbed basically all of the leads that were attributed under 2 hours, and then in each one of those buckets, and basically did the lead to booking percentage. First call under 2 hours was 3 to 4 times higher in terms of lead to booking than all of the other buckets. And it started cutting in half as I went down every single basically range. Okay, so what do we do? Let me see here. All we did, let me see if it's here, is we put this into our clients' basically environments, and all we told them was all we're gonna focus on for the next 30 days, guys, is
moving more people from the far right buckets into the far left. That's literally all we did. And we were getting, I mean, this actually got sent to me probably 2 days ago, but this was 1 week difference between not tracking and tracking. 50% lift. That's it. That's it. We didn't put anything else. They didn't change process. There was no difference except for they were visualizing the reporting, and they made it known to every single one of the reps that we're going to focus on this one thing for the next 30 days. That's it. All setters. Yep. So you guys can scan this. It's literally a step-by-step breakdown of how we do our speed to lead, from the properties, the calculations, how we run it, track it, all of that stuff. It's a 45-minute video. You can literally just go top down. You guys can all implement this. All right? Now, the infamous show rate. All right? And I'm going to try and go as fast as I can so you guys can answer questions at the end. But we tried, this has been like the bane of my existence, quite literally. Because everyone's like, oh, you do systems. Can you get me to 90% show rate? I'm like, yeah. No. Anyways, but there was a time when you could set up some pre-call reminders and people would show up, right? And then there was a time where shit changed and Google decided to change stuff and things got a little more complicated. Emails stopped being sent. There's just a million different things that are changing. And we've tried almost anything that you guys can possibly think of trying for show rates. And what I found was one thing that never failed us, not ever. It always, literally every single time we've done it, increased the show rate. No matter what industry, no matter B2B, B2C, it didn't matter. And it was the simplest thing that we actually implemented, okay? And actually, Matt said something the other day, which I actually really agree with. He's like, there's no priority level against setters and closers. They're both equally as important. And I took that and I started thinking about that. I was like, okay, so if lead to booking is a really important metric that we all focus on, and obviously close rates is, why do we not do the same thing with show rate? You guys ask yourselves that? Like, ever actually think about that? Something as important of getting people that you already paid to book a call to show up to the call? Why do we not make that a role, a process, and an actual engine inside of our business? I think we should. So I'm going to break down exactly what we've done. So when we're thinking about show rates, the one thing that we can all agree with is we run automations to try and get a response. The response basically allows us to confirm the appointment. And the thing that most people don't do and where they stop is as soon as they get a confirmed appointment, they dip out. Nick, thanks, dude. Still good for 1 p.m. today? Yeah, I'm good. Great. Peace. Done. Right?
Just kidding. Something came up.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, yeah, I've got a million other things to do. I'm good. So this was the first thing that we looked at is people are running automations to try and get a response. And then they're actually, some people do have confirmation specialists in. So they go for the confirmation, they get the confirmation, that's it. Okay? It's not how you get your confirmation percentage to go up, and it's not how you actually get people to show up for a call. So what we started looking at was, all right, we want to prompt a response. The best way to prompt a response is not by saying, hey, I'm here to confirm your appointment. That was the first thing, right? The second thing is, after we got them in conversation, we wanted to requalify, obviously, and then make the confirmation. After the confirmation is the most important part that nobody does. And it's actually nurturing the lead up to the actual meeting start time. And it's really easy to do. And somebody mentioned it the other day, but what we've been doing is we create playbooks, and I'll show you guys what this looks like, to where whatever their answers are, we're dropping them links to like YouTube videos and different stuff to try and get them going towards the content, right? We're not sending them a thank you page redirect to continue watching the video that they might have already watched, okay? And then also, which I'll talk about here in a second, and yeah, to simplify the out of this, guys, like confirmation specialist role in your department, setting comp and KPIs, which I'm going to go over, implementing booking prioritization system. So we prioritize leads for our setters. Why do we not do the same for confirmation? Probably should, right? And then we track it. Okay. What's that? Yeah, I'm going to go into it. Yep. So KPIs for this role, very, very simple. It's percentage of dispositions basically prior to the call start time. So how many people are we actually moving from pending to confirmed, rescheduled, canceled, right? If the end time passes and it's still in pending, it moves to not confirmed. Make sense? That's the automation, okay? So we can actually track how well our confirmation specialist is doing. Now, the overall show rate per, obviously, call type is obviously another KPI. But what we do for compensation, and it's really straightforward, and I was actually talking to, I can't remember his name, but VA placement. We just use really well-spoken VAs. It's extremely cheap, very cost-effective, and if you think about a 5% lift in show rate overall, like imagine how much money that actually makes you. To not have to chase down the prospect, to get them to show up, they're happier, they're excited. And a good pre-call process will actually bring back your sales cycle as well. So it's not even more of a higher show rate. If you do a really good job, you actually have a faster sales cycle because people are more prepared to have a conversation, make a decision. Make sense? So this is extremely important. Now, the way we do it, small base, and then it's always incentivized, right? I've seen a lot of confirmation roles where they're just on a base and there's no reason for them to actually confirm appointments. You have to incentivize that role just like you would incentivize a setter for setting calls, right? So what we do as a kicker, based on the baseline, the trailing 90-day indicator, we take our show rate and basically we'll put a range, which is expected, right? If they bring us over that range, their kicker goes up by 20%, 50%, whatever. If they're below that range, the kicker disappears or it gets cut in half. Really, really simple. You guys could literally start this role tomorrow and you'd have no problem with this, okay? Now, moving into what we actually track off this, and actually you guys will get a resource in this. So, priority system. So, I like to do things as simple as possible, right? Like, I don't like to make things very complicated. Our priority system is very, very simple. So, every single call that we get booked goes into an active list. So, every single up and coming call is in one active list, okay? As it moves closer to the basically meeting start time, the smart views will start to populate for that confirmation specialist, okay? So 72 hours, right, all of those calls. 48 hours until, all of those calls. 24 hours until, all of those calls, right? It doesn't matter if they're confirmed or anything along those lines, but basically, all we're doing is we're trying to get the confirmation specialist the same way we'd want to do with our setters to not think about who they have to work in priority of order so that we can make sure that the calls today are done and confirmed. It's not rocket science. It's really, really straightforward. It's a smart view. What's that? So these are active lists in HubSpot. So they're just basically filtered lists that will pull in whatever parameters you give it. So we have an all-in-one list, which is all up-and-coming calls, and then we filter down off of that for meeting start time, basically time until. Make sense? So that is how the actual confirmation specialist is working through these leads, right? And their goal is to just get as many to confirmed, not confirmed, or canceled as possible, right? It's actually a good thing if they're taking people off the calendar, if they're on the call and they're qualifying, and it's just a terrible prospect. And then one other thing that you guys might not think about, and for anybody who's taken a ton of sales calls back to back to back to back, one of the nicest things about this is you can show up and you know if the appointment's confirmed or not. So you just have like the mental, I don't know, whatever it is for closers because they're constantly getting on calls and waiting 5, 10, 15 minutes and no one shows up and it just kills momentum. So there's a lot of stuff that happens with this. Now, with this, right, we took it a little bit of a step further. There's a new object in HubSpot, which is appointments. This is probably a little bit deeper, so I'm going to go quick on this. But we basically mirrored our confirmation process with the pipeline for our sales reps. So our main sales pipeline, all of our actual deals, is mirrored to an appointments pipeline. And that appointments pipeline is where our confirmation specialist works. Does that make sense? So all the rep confirmation specialist is doing is working out of the appointments pipeline, so it's not confusing. There's not a shit ton of deals. There's not a ton of extra stuff. This is a new thing, and it's great. It's amazing. No, this is all native.
But not everyone's using HubSpot to schedule appointments, right? So if you're using one sub or something, can you still populate
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, as soon as that appointment comes in, just as a regular meeting booked, right, you could basically have the object created the same way you would create a deal. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. So you just create association between disco or closing, right? So, and I'm going to give you guys the documentation for this as well. Now, the next thing we did is in HubSpot, again, just like we do with our setters and just like we do with our closers, I gave them a view, right? Every contact that our confirmation specialist goes to works out of the appointments view. on the contact record. And what does this have? It has all of the relevant information for discovery calls at the top and closing calls at the bottom. They don't have to look, they don't have to think, they don't have to do anything. They're dropping their notes straight in. That populates everything else, and we're good to go. Okay? Now, going beyond that, I've heard a lot of really good stuff with the AI for pre-call. One of the things that we took a step further with this is based on their disposition when they cross those thresholds. So let's say somebody's confirmed 72 hours out, right? Usually that's like all right, they're good. They're confirmed, right? We're 72 hours out. We don't really need to do anything with them. What we do is we change the correspondence based on their disposition when they cross the thresholds. Does that make sense? You guys follow me? So if they're pending confirmation still, it's 24 hours out. It's a completely different line of messaging or any automation that we're going to fire compared to somebody who's confirmed on the day of their appointment. Okay, so we're trying to meet them where they're actually at in the process. And the reason we can do this now is because of the disposition and the time thresholds. So these workflows fire every single time a new threshold's crossed. And you can obviously go way, way, way in depth in this, and we've done some really crazy shit. The AI stuff works extremely well. The voice messages, I mean, I really like the idea of, I don't remember who said it, but AI voice drops to people who are 24 hours out from the CEO or whoever the case may be. Typically what we do is send a text and it's like, hey, all of my appointments are confirmed. You know, it's 8 a.m. I'm just trying to get in hold of you. I'd really respect it if you could just let me know if you're going to show up or not so I can book somebody over your time slot, right? Simple stuff, but it works, and it's focused. And the thing I'm trying to get you guys to understand here is we put a ton of energy into setters and closers. Why not show rate? It's not very difficult. And it has a massive, massive impact on everything that you guys are going to do with sales. So, okay, some other stuff. So I'm not going to go a ton into what Cole specifically does because it's you need something like this in place. You can't just jump to this, right? But confirmation playbook is really nice. That's the YouTube links. Make it really easy for them. If they say this, send this video. If they do that, send this video, right? Very, very simple. The app grading is honestly one of my favorite things to do, especially with really high volume. So for example, applications will come in, they'll get graded 1 through 4, exactly what Cole said. Based on the show rate of that application, that's how you basically differentiate, am I going to double book this type of lead or not? Does that make sense? So your 1s and 2s, right, if their show rate is less than whatever your threshold is, right, we're going to double book those. But if 3s or 4s are showing up at a 70, 80, whatever percent, we don't need to double book those. It allows you guys to focus and create a better process so it's less chaotic for you when you go to double book. Make sense? So, other side, blue text. I mean, we've done send blue, we've done link. Both work really well. Obviously, blue texts, if you can get that into that part of the process. Our confirmation specialist only works off of blue messages. It's just a completely night and day difference in terms of response and overall communication back and forth with the prospect. So that's something that you guys should absolutely do. And then conditional paths, which I just talked about. Okay? So the difference between crossing thresholds and what you're talking to them about. All right, next thing. So this is something new that we're doing. Actually, after the last event, something clicked. Cole talks about Fringe deals all the time. And we've been doing something that we launched a new program, and we have a lot of like, let me think about it. You know, I don't know. I've joined programs before or whatever. So this will work really well if you're doing anything info product, especially B2B. So for us, it was a lot of, yeah, I got to talk to my partner, show my sales director, show my CMO, whatever the case may be, right? And those were our Fringe deals. Like those are the things we were running into constantly over and over and over again. So what we did is, are you guys familiar with CSPs, conditional stage properties? Drag it into deal stage, it pops, locks your screen, you got to fill stuff out. Cool. So what we did is the rep will basically drag it over into qualified, nurture, or red zone, or whatever your actual farthest to the right of the deal stage basically disposition is. And the CSPs are really straightforward. What's their biggest pain point? They'll type it in, right? They'll select all the drop downs, do all this stuff. Do we want to send basically a trial? That's what we call it, right? Based on the selection of what you're telling them, or telling basically the CSP is the biggest problem they're facing, we've pulled videos out of our program, put them on very responsive pages, and those links send out directly to that individual, and I'm going to show you guys what one actually looks like. But basically our, let me see here. Can you guys see this all right? Okay, cool. So what we're doing is essentially, there's a bunch of different pages that host different videos. And because we're hosting it inside of HubSpot, we can see whenever somebody clicks the training, views the page, does anything on this, we can see it. And what we noticed is I need to talk to my partner and I need to do all these things. We're like, all right, well, how can we just put this in something where we can flex that we're really good at this shit? And at the same time, if they want to go through and solve the problem that they were telling me they were trying to solve, if we can solve that for them, the only next thing is like, yeah, I trust you. I'd love to move forward, right? And that's what we tested. And I'm going to show you guys some of the responses we've gotten from this. But basically, it drops down. It's a personalized message. All this text is responsive. So based on whatever they're dealing with, it basically inputs. The video is different per link that sends out. That's how the workflow is firing. So based on the problem they're facing, it sends out a different link. The training's all hosted below. And it goes over the program. It goes over basically everything that the problems they're facing. It links our quote, so the proposal. It links the call to their recording. This is all just based off CSPs. You guys can put whatever the hell you want in here. And we took it a step further because we're sending out a lot of speed to lead stuff. We started throwing all their metrics on the page too, for us. So we said, hey, Mr. Matt, we called you in the first 27 minutes, right? You came from Facebook. The campaign you came from is our Launchpad asset. So we found this as like something funny that they see at the very bottom and they go, wait, what the hell? And then all of a sudden, we get emails back from people who completely disappeared from us. So that's why I call it the Excalibur of Fringe deals. So yeah, actually, this is the funny part. So this is an email I got 8 days ago. This was one of the first people. He disappeared for 2 weeks. Yeah. How do we get started, basically? And that's the type of emails we get from this. They go, they show their partner, they send it to their partner. If you're in HubSpot, you can obviously take the company record, associate that to the deal so that any contacts that view this page will have the call recordings and everything else. So anyways, pretty cool stuff here. All right, last thing I want to talk about, I'm going to be really, really quick. Oh, I've got time. All right, so last thing I want to talk about that I've heard a lot about. We've been doing this for a while, and it's one of the most beneficial things that all of you guys can actually sit down and think through and try and implement. So when we're looking at our process, right, we've got the setter process, the discovery process, the closing process. If you guys look across your deal pipeline and your contacts and just where leads are actually falling out of your process, I think it was you that was talking about drop-off coverage. So the way that we do it, and you guys can do this in ActiveCampaign, whatever you're on, but basically we create an active list that has filters for whatever thresholds and time decay parameters we want per that process, okay? So basically, for example, on the front end, they've been called X amount of times with no response, right? They haven't been contacted, there's no activity in X amount of time, they haven't booked a call, right? So these would be our layer one, basically drop-off lists, right? And because they're active lists, they're just going to grab and pull any lead that meets that parameter down into that list. And that list will trigger basically what we call our layer one coverage, which is a fully automated basically correspondence. Email doesn't really work for this stuff. I hate to say it. Like, it's not very effective at actually getting people to like re-engage. But what it does do is it gives us link clicks, email opens, and we can actually put a score around anybody in these lists. And when they deviate up against their score, guess what happens? We just send that straight to the setter that's assigned. He rips them back. That goes straight to the top of their dialer queue, and they're back prioritized, right? Now, layer one has to be fully automated because your reps are not going to actually take the time to follow up with leads that are not active, because why are they not active? They're not contacting them, obviously. Right? So layer one is all it is, guys, is quite literally an active list. That active list is your trigger for your workflow. The workflow fires the emails and everything else that you're doing. And all you're trying to do in that basically workflow is set up triggers and traps. That's what we call it. If they open blank, notification. If they do this, send text. If they click link, push them back, right? So that's our layer one coverage. And you can do this across all of your primary drop-offs. And if you guys just literally purely just took these 3 points, which go into your pipeline and filter all of your qualified closing calls that have been completed, that you guys have no activity in X amount of time with, look at how many deals are sitting there. These are people that you guys paid for, qualified, had a conversation with, made an offer to, and they're just dying in your pipeline. So why not try and cover it with an active list and a workflow? It's just simple stuff that can make it so much more profitable for you guys to have your team. And also, your sales reps are going to freaking love you for it because you're going to be bringing commission back to their pockets that they would have lost, right? Now, layer 2, I want to be super specific on this because actually, John, who was speaking the other day, gave me the biggest aha moment. So layer 2, if you guys notice, I know this is really blurry, but basically layer 2, all it is if they make it all the way through that workflow without triggering any of our quote unquote traps, the very last step in the workflow is dropping them into a static list. And these are our layer 2 drop-offs, okay? Now what those lists do is they're just segmented so that we have all of our drop-off layer 2 leads that never booked a call. We have all of our layer 2 drop-off leads that basically no-showed. We have all of our layer 2 drop-offs that qualified, made an offer to, but didn't close, right? And what this does is it basically aggregates the whole thing into one big marketing list. And what I was thinking about when I was hearing John talk was like, damn, I can just keep putting, gift box offers in front of these people. And layer 2 is your manual engagement list, right? It's like a remarketing list. Now, the cool thing that we do with this and what we set up for a lot of our clients is because you're hitting a layer 1 or a layer 2, you can also stamp it. So any lead or deal or contact that hits layer 1, layer 2, you can go filter all of your revenue and you can basically see how much revenue you're collecting in standard process, how much is coming out of layer 1 and how much is coming out of layer 2. Does that make sense? So you guys can actually see how effective your stuff is on your follow-up. Cool? All right. Actually, one last point here because I've got a few minutes. HubSpot just rolled out prospecting agents. So the farther down the pipeline you have inside of HubSpot, so your offers that you made, the prospecting agents call all of your transcription records, all of your emails, all of the record data that you have, any properties you filled out, anything, and you can set CTA to whatever you want. So basically these agents are literally prompting themselves off of all the conversations you've had up until this point. And if you set the CTA and prompt the agent as this is somebody who disappeared out of our pipeline after we made an offer, guess what? That agent will run by itself as you with all of the information that you've collected up to this point, including every single conversation you've had either over the phone or over Zoom by itself. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to integrate shit. It just works. It's pretty dope. It's really cool. It's a beta still, so you guys have to request access to the beta, but it's really, really awesome. Yeah, this is what I would say. I was going to build this out, but this was like one of the last slides that I wanted to give you guys. If you can, go home and just filter all of your front-end leads that have never booked a call by anybody that has no activity, right, in the last X amount of time. And by activity, I mean like rep activity, like outbound calls, texts, right, like being worked, right? See how many leads you have, okay? Do this same thing for just anybody that's been basically brought in over the last 90 days. And then just figure out your percentage of leads that are ending up in the gutter on your front end, your middle, and your end of your process. You're going to throw up, but it's good to see. So do that, and then don't call me upset, but you'll know what you're fixing. One thing for the layer 1, I do have something that we've done for a long time. So our clients, the biggest problem is like, well, I don't want to write email copy for 4 drop-off points. So what we do is we take their best sales calls, we take their best testimonials, we transcribe both, and then we prompt ChatGPT over 3 basically prompts, telling it that we want to find all of the pain people are coming in with, the gaps that they've had, the solutions they've tried, and mirror that with all of our best testimonials. And that's what we prompt all of our copy to be written for each drop-off with. It spits out nasty copy. Like, it's actually really fucking good, like extremely good. So I'll give you guys this prompt. Makes it really easy. There's no excuse not to do it at this point. And it does both SMS and email. And it takes our trap methodology into effect as well. Cool. Okay, oui? Oui. Yeah, very nice. Yeah.